Hi, and welcome to 50 Cents, the channel for women who aren't afraid of growing older. Today I'm going to be chatting to nutritionalist Jackie Lynch, who has written the fantastic The Happy Menopause. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy it. Tell me about yourself, Jackie. You're a nutritionalist. How has that come about, and the books and the podcast? Tell me.
Oh, well, I'll try and condense that. That's a big question. So I'm a registered nutritional therapist, and what that means is that I work in a clinical setting with people on an individual basis who are looking for diet solutions, nutrition advice to either support perhaps the ongoing treatment of an existing medical condition, or to take a preventative approach to their healthcare. Everybody's got a slightly different angle. But the great thing about nutrition is that it can help in so many ways because it genuinely does affect every bodily system. So while my particular specialist interest is women's health and the menopause, people will nonetheless come to consult me about digestive issues, skin issues, weight management, fatigue, and all manner of things. And the wonderful thing is that by targeting one area with the right food, you very often end up with benefits in other areas. So that's what I do. And I suppose in terms of the podcast and the book, it's about getting the message out there, because what became clear to me in my nutrition clinic is that there simply isn't enough information out there for women at all levels in relation to the menopause. We are stuffed with information around pregnancy and child rearing and all those things, which of course is really important. But not every woman gets pregnant. Every woman goes through the menopause. And I think it's really important that women are able to see what the different options are for them, the fact that diet and lifestyle can play a huge role whether you're taking hormone replacement therapy or not, because either it's going to be crucial because you're not taking it, or it's going to make the medication work better. So either way, you're onto a winner. But people often don't realize this. So I started the podcast as a way of getting out there and making that information easily available. And the book is really, so you've got that podcast in your handbag, if you like, so that it's all already there.
I mean, your podcast is great because I was on it. But your podcast is also called The Happy Menopause. And I love it because you have such a huge selection of guests. So it's not just coming at menopause from a medical point of view, for example. You have both the medical and also lifestyle guests that come in as well. How important was that to you?
Well, really important. I mean, first of all, I called it The Happy Menopause. The book, quick plug, the book is also called The Happy Menopause because I was getting a little tired of headline hitting horror stories. And I know there are many women who have a dreadful time. I do appreciate that. But not every woman does. There's probably about 20% of women who have a really tough time. There's another 20% who have sail through it and don't know what all the fuss is about. And then most of us are somewhere in the middle with our ups and downs and various symptoms that come and go with varying degrees of severity. So I just thought, let's just look at the menopause as a door opening to something new and not something just shutting on the end of your fertile years and it's all downhill from now on. So the title was really important to me, but the range of guests too, because much as I love nutrition, I didn't think anyone would want to hear me banging on about nutrition episode after episode. And because it's one part of this big picture. So with each episode, I bring in a specialist. So, for example, on the sleep episode, I bring in the fabulous professor of circadian neuroscience, Russell Foster, who has an amazing ability to make complex concepts feel very simple and distill it down into practical day-to-day stuff. So that there'll be him, there's a consultant dermatologist about hair, but then also there's women who are experiencing that and bringing their experience, which is why the positivity one is still one of my favorites, because it's originally three different women with their different experiences of what have been going on there and a really positive way of approaching it. So there's the medical angles, there's the biochemical and physiological angles, there's still lots of nutrition because I'm not going to ignore that, that's my thing. But, there's going to be something on someone who's found a really creative and clever way of approaching exercise and improving their health that way, such as the Joe Mosley episode, because she's now our champion paddleboarder and she's really managed her symptoms through that. So lots and lots of different ways. And one of the nice things about it is that it makes the podcast have something for everyone, I think.
Yeah, that is what I like about it. You can clip in, and sometimes if I'm wanting something really in depth, then there's someone there who I can do it with. And sometimes if I am just wanting a really, really good feel-good story, I will go to someone like Joe who just cheers you up constantly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not great on water, but I do think, I'd really like to go paddleboarding.
Yeah, I know, it's given me the urge as well.
It's really cool. So how did the menopause, did the podcast lead on to the book, or was the book already in the works when you started your podcast?
Oh, it was very much in the works. I mean, to be honest, I have wanted to write this book for a long time, and it's not my first book, so I honestly didn't think it would be difficult finding a publisher. But you live and learn, don't you? And I was absolutely shocked to discover that the receiving email after email, great concept, but a bit niche. We'd need a celebrity attached to this. And I just thought, how can that be? How can that possibly be a niche subject when it affects, 51% of the population? So I was very grateful when my publisher stepped forward and recognized it wasn't niche. So I actually wrote it quite a while ago. And the podcast launched. Although the podcast launched in summer 2019, I was already busy writing the book at that point. And it was part of my plan really to just get the information out there and take the menopause out of the closet, if you like, so that we dare to talk about it. And one of the great things about it is I've learned a lot from my expert guests. So I've been able to draw on that for the certain parts of the book that aren't perhaps my own specialist area.
So tell us about the book. I thought it was great. What I really enjoyed was you go through symptoms and then how you can manage them with your diet, rather than just trying to tell everybody, just have a nice healthy diet and you'll be fine. This actually gives a go-to for how you can deal with some of your symptoms.
Yeah, I really wanted it to be that, because no two women have the same experience. I mean, you'll know that from all the different women you speak to, and your lovely poster, of course, with all those different symptoms on there. Because, some women have, really bad hot flushes and night sweats, but you might be the anxiety one or the headache one or the fatigue one or a little combination of those. It's unlikely you'll have the same experience as your best friend. So I think what I wanted to do was make it a practical, user-friendly book. I didn't want it to be a diet book, because I think we're all really sick of diet books. And I think we get to an age where you just don't want to be told by someone else what you're supposed to be eating. But what I did want to do is make it possible for you to sort of flick through the book and think, I'm having some issues with my periods because I'm perimenopausal. Let's see what it says about heavy periods or painful periods. Or, my nails, they're really giving me grief, or it's the anxiety. So I wanted to pick as many of the big symptoms as possible and give it a look from a diet and lifestyle perspective, so you could see what you could do yourself, taking control of your own health, that can just make a difference to whatever symptoms particularly bothering you.
And it goes back to what you said before about how quite often if you deal with one element of your health through diet, it has a knock-on effect. Because the thing I've learned most with 50 Cents and with positivity is that menopause is not just about your ovaries, it's about your entire body and how you treat your entire body from head to toe. And that's what's so good about the Happy Menopause. It's about treating your whole body from head to toe. You might just be looking at one symptom, but that's going to have a knock-on effect.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it really is. And I think that, although the people may find there are some things that keep coming back, that's because there's no one food that sort of only contains magnesium or only contains vitamin C or zinc or calcium or whatever you're looking at. Foods contain combinations of nutrients. So, of course, you might be eating a food that's high in magnesium, like leafy green vegetables. And yes, I'd say have them every day. But the great thing is they also contain iron and calcium and vitamin C and vitamin K2 for our bones. So, having, lots of really good food can start to affect other areas of your health as well, which is just it's an all-round winner, really.
Because you did a little short video for positivity for World Menopause Month, and you raved about magnesium.
I love it. Honestly, it's my favorite mineral. Every menopausal woman's best friend, because it does so many different jobs. It plays a role in bone health because we can't absorb calcium without the magnesium. It calms the nervous system. So when we're feeling a bit jittery, and these are hard times, I think even the calmest of us is feeling a bit jittery right now. And if you're predisposed to anxiety and low mood, then these are difficult days. So, magnesium calms all of that down, acts as a bit of a buffer, so that you feel better equipped to cope with the challenges of daily life. It supports our energy levels. It's a bit like our ignition key. The whole process of energy production won't start without magnesium. We need it for muscle function. So if you've got those tired, aching muscles or that twitchy eyelid, the one, we'll get it at times, classic sign of magnesium deficiency. So it does multiple things that will be helpful to busy women in midlife, wherever you are on your menopause journey, basically.
One of the things I always am confused about, is it okay to take something like magnesium in supplements, or should you be looking at taking it through food, through proper food groups?
Well, it's a great question, and it's a really sensible question. A few things to say. I mean, I'd always say food first, because it comes then in the correct absorbable form that your body recognizes. Supplements can be very helpful, but it's important to remember that they, particularly individual supplements, are highly concentrated doses. So you need to be mindful of that. If you take any medication, then it could interact. Magnesium, for example, can help to reduce blood pressure. If you're already on blood pressure medication, you might then start to reduce it too much, and that could lead to dizzy spells and fainting and risk of falls and so on. So always important to check with your doctor before you start taking supplements, just to make sure that there aren't going to be any interactions either with a medical condition or existing medication. But for most of us, I'd say it's probably okay to be taking a really good quality multivitamin and mineral, because one of the nice things about that is that it replicates what I just described in nature. It's got a little bit of everything in, letting them all work together so that you don't need to think, oh, am I having too much of this and not enough of this? Because minerals in particular work in opposition to each other. For example, sodium and potassium work against each other. Too much of one knocks out the other. If you've been mainlining the zinc because you've heard it's great for your immune system and you're worried about COVID, well, that's going to knock out your copper levels, because zinc and copper work in opposition. And if you're low in copper, you're going to get a form of anemia, and you'll be feeling really tired and rubbish. And no menopausal woman wants to be feeling really tired and rubbish, because there's enough of that going on already. So I think a sensible thing is a good quality multi for most of us. Beyond that, probably best to get some specialist advice to build on that, just to make sure that you're not going crazy.
Are there any nutrients that menopausal women are more prone to be lacking in?
Yeah, I think there are. I mean, it will depend where you are on your menopause journey. Iron's a big one, because a lot of women, and this happened to me, they were a bit taken aback in their 40s to find that your periods are getting much heavier and closer together. I felt properly cheated when that happened. And so, I had to keep an eye on my iron levels, because, of course, that extra blood loss can start to lead to anemia. And you might never have been prone to anemia before, but it's really quite common during the perimenopause. And that can cause headaches, palpitations, obviously fatigue as well, and have you feeling generally really weak. So something to think about there. Eating foods that are rich in iron is always going to be a good shout. So, the red meat, like venison, actually is a very lean red meat, contains more calcium than, more iron than steak, for example, but also leafy greens, another good source of iron. So it doesn't have to be all about the meat if it's not right for you. I tend to find that midlife women are low in magnesium for all the reasons I've described earlier, because we're eating it up. Body's really burning through it because of the stress. And B vitamins are a biggie as well. B vitamins are the links in the chain reaction of energy production, but we also need them to support the nervous system and cognitive function. So again, if you're struggling with low mood, anxiety, then checking out B vitamins. And some of the more regular tests at the GP, things like a B12 test, are very easy to get, or folate, which is vitamin B9. And lacking either of those can have you feeling absolutely dreadful. B12 deficiency won't just make you feel tired, but it will cause loss of concentration, poor memory, low mood, and depression. And we all know that those can be big factors anyway. And because there's a tendency now to move towards plant-based diets, which by and large, really healthy in lots of ways, but the problem is that B12 is only found in animal sources. So if you're not getting that through your diet, you certainly need to be looking at supplementing B12.
My mum has to take B12 injections.
Right.
We really notice, it's so true, we can really notice when she's coming towards needing a new injection, because she just goes right down.
Yeah.
You see, she's a lot more tired. She struggles a lot with the memory. Yeah, we can really, really tell with B12. Did you have a happy menopause then?
I did have super heavy periods. My periods went haywire at the beginning, and I had this very unusual symptom of vomiting on day one of my period, which was most unpleasant. I was very glad when that stopped. But I think I was fortunate in that, because I had already trained and qualified by that time to become a nutritionist, I had a bit of an inside track on what to do. So I was able to take action quite early on to deal with and manage some of those heavy periods through diet and lifestyle, and then really lay down the groundwork in my mid-40s, because it started to kick off relatively early for me. Because if you can do that, what you're doing in your early 40s really can determine how much you're likely to struggle as you go through the menopause. So getting that groundwork laid down, eating the right thing, having that healthy, balanced diet, and really looking after yourself is key. So yeah, I would say I absolutely did. And I'm 54 now, and I love being in my 50s. I love the sense of sort of independence and confidence that I get from that. I love not having to worry about having kit in my handbag all the time anymore if I'm pop out, because I used to be super regular, but during the perimenopause it was happening at all times, so I couldn't even just plan for my monthly, because it wasn't my monthly anymore, it was my daily. So great to get rid of that. And I've also, I think, really enjoyed reaching out to this sort of menopause community, the sisterhood that I've discovered through the work that I do, and you at 50 Cents, but also Positivity, and a whole host of other brilliant women who are championing the menopause, and it's actually really made it fun, because we've got a lot to share, and I've enjoyed that.
That's what I love about the community, is if you're having a bad day, there are people who understand because they've been through it. But at the same time, there is such a strength in them that they're able to help you get through it. I know so on some of my really, really bad days, when I've turned to the Twitter community that I'm on, the women there have just been amazing. So yeah, this whole community, which is why we need to talk about menopause more and get people understanding and not being ashamed of saying, yeah, actually, I am going through the menopause. Because then you'll get other people who say, well, so am I. Do you get this? And yeah, I get that. And it just means you no longer feel alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's the thing. And until I started banging on about it, my friends never talked about it. And I started talking about it quite openly. And then they'd sort of say, well, do you know, actually, I'm having that. And I think that's great. But one thing I've noticed is that we are still very shy about it. I am posting on social media left, right, and centre, my articles, my videos, my podcasts, obviously pushing the book. And lots of friends will say to me, that was a really interesting article, or I loved your video. But I noticed that they didn't like it because it means you're coming out as menopausal on social media. And I think mainly once we get past 50, we're not so worried about that. But I think when we're in our 40s, a lot of women still feel a bit like, oh, I don't really want the world to know about where I am in my journey. So it's a very personal thing. I think that's why the podcast works so well, actually, because people can quietly listen and get great information without everyone knowing that you're doing that. Because it takes a while for women, I think, to sort of feel confident about talking about it as openly as we've learned to.
That's why I was saying the other day, we need to be the new suffragettes. I'm calling us the menagettes.
Yeah,
To take
I'm up for that. I'm going to be a menagette.
I like it as well because it's got sort of like pink ladies and T-birds ideas about it. It sounds like we could be in Greece with that. That's really
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely up for that.
So if you had one piece of advice to give somebody who's just starting to go through menopause, the perimenopausal, what would it be, Jackie?
One piece. Oh, that's mean. Well, I think if I was only going to say one thing, I'd say eat more protein. Because it was one thing I didn't mention when you said that women are, what aren't they getting in their diet? And I think women are very bad at all ages, actually, at getting enough protein in the diet. And it's really important for a number of reasons during the perimenopause, because we need protein. Well, we're made of protein, first of all. Every body cell is actually made of protein. So if you haven't got enough protein, everything's going to start falling apart. Not just your skin and hair, but also, key body systems won't work as well. Protein is hard to digest, so it slows down the release of carbohydrate in the body, keeps you going for longer, keeps that blood sugar balance. Get your blood sugar balance, then you don't have those crashes that release stress hormones that are going to disrupt the action of your sex hormones, and we don't want any of that disruption going on because there's plenty happening all by itself. We need protein to build muscle. So probably by the time we've gone through the menopause, we can lose up to 40% of our muscle mass. And that's really crucial. We need to be strong so that we can sort of move through midlife and into later life, without the risk of falls and being able to be active and enjoying life. We need protein. The amino acids found in proteins are used to create neurotransmitters that govern things like mood, motivation, memory. And we know that those are issues for women in midlife. So, what do I mean by protein? I mean things like meat, fish, or eggs are classic sources of animal protein, but also lentils, chickpeas, beans, soya, nuts and seeds, quinoa, all great sources of protein. And because that's all quite varied, you can find a way to get it in every meal. You can add that flaxseed to your breakfast. You can have hummus with your carrot sticks, and then, have your chicken breast with your salad later. But think about it whenever you're about to eat, where's the protein in this? Because that's going to have you feeling stronger as a first baseline of getting things better. And then you can start to look at making other changes from there. And because you're just feeling stronger and more confident.
One thing I've found as well with the menopause weight gain, if I have a meal that's more protein, I'm fuller for a hell of a lot longer afterwards. I'm not going for the chocolate bar 2 hours later.
Absolutely. It really helps to reduce sugar cravings because you've had a proper meal. You've actually activated what's called the satiety response, which tells you when you're full so that you don't have that mid-afternoon crash and you don't need the biscuits.
Yeah, let's go. I'm going to end with one last plug because it is just a brilliant book. Well done. I was just really, really pleased to see it come through because I know how hard you'd worked on it. And I would recommend it to everybody. It's one of those, I get sent a few books and quite a lot of them I pass on, but there's about 3 or 4 that stay on my bookshelf, and that's one of them because
thank you.
You can just dip in and out of it, and if I'm not feeling great, I can have a look and think, okay, I maybe need to up this or reduce this, or so it's really cool.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.